we are focusing on step 6. If those of you are joining us for the first time, we have been looking at the 12 and 12 and what we can learn from the 12 and 12 about emotional sobriety from Bill Wilson. This was the first place that Bill really used the phrase or published the phrase emotional sobriety. And it occurred when he was discussing step 12 in the 12 and 12, when he said if we practice these principles in our daily lives, that we and those about us find emotional sobriety. So it was clearly stated here that the outcome, the goal of working the steps after physical sobriety and breaking the bonds of our addiction is to achieve emotional sobriety. And we can start to really dig into and start to look at how Bill talks about the different steps, especially as he goes on in steps 4, 5, 6, and so forth, about his starting to integrate his ideas of emotional sobriety. As you guys heard me say many, many, many times before, the steps are very powerful. They create a charge that moves us from now to next, to what we need next. The first step created this charge that was based on this crisis that we had, this existential crisis. We realized, we call it the second first step. The second first step was focusing on our emotional dependence and how that's created an unmanageable life. Cecilia was just talking about it. We get caught in this loop, demanding things go our way, and when they don't, we don't know how to deal with our disappointment or how to get aligned, with reality. So we really started to become aware of that the second time we go work that first step about our powerlessness and not knowing really what to do. Well, that leaves us in quite a dilemma, that here I'm creating this unmanageability in my life and I have no idea on how to clean this up and how to turn it around. And that state of hopelessness leads us to step 2. So the charge is we're in an existential crisis. Step 2 comes along and resolves that with hope. Says that we can be restored to sanity, just evenness of, an even-mindedness, reasonable, rational thinking kind of a thing. And that's what step 2 does. It says there is a way that we can start to establish this emotional freedom, so not to be so dependent on things being a certain way for us to be okay. And so then in step 2, there's a charge. We have hope now, but hope, faith without action is just going to be a fantasy. So now we need to do something. And step 3 comes along and we make a decision to now pursuing this new life, a new beginning to our life that's based on self-support, not on being dependent on what's called environmental support. So now the charge that develops in step 3, that it resolves the charge from step 2, that now we take action. This is our first, Bill calls it our first affirmative action towards this new way of life. But now we're told, okay, now go ahead. You've made a commitment. Now sit down and take a look at yourself. And, that's what Cecilia was just talking about. She's now taking an inventory and looking at her emotional dependence and the impact it's had on her life. And that's the second, fourth step, is looking at our life through the lens of emotional dependence and how that's impacted our lives, what that's done to our lives, how that has created a certain kind of a consciousness that we've continued to develop. Now, or that's undeveloped, that keeps us immature is a better way to say it. And so we become aware of all of that. That's what happens in step 4, is we increase our awareness of who we are and how we're functioning, especially who we're not yet. And now we've got that information. We need to share it with what I like to think of as an enlightened witness, someone that can give us some feedback, give us some direction, help point us in the right way in terms of starting to get our handle on some of this stuff. And that's our step 5. So we do that. And now once we start to get clear, right, of what I like to think of as our working point, step 6 comes along, right? We're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. The essence of step 6 is developing the best possible attitude towards life. And I want to talk about that right now. So let me share my screen with you. Julia, does that show up on the screen okay?
Yes. But yeah, in my view, you're 50% you and 50% the
So
your
you can grab your cursor and make me smaller and make that bigger if you grab a
Yep.
line of it. So you can change the size of that. So as I said, one way of looking at step 6 is we're developing the best possible attitude that we can for this recovery journey, for this journey towards emotional freedom, towards emotional autonomy. So, what is it raises the question, well, what is the best possible attitude? What do we mean by that? So, one way to answer this question is to reflect on what attitudes we move away from and what attitudes we move towards. Okay? What are we moving away from and what are we moving towards? And so, we're going to reflect on that. So the first thing is we move away from trying to be someone that we think we should be. We move away from thinking that it's that if I can be this false self, I'm going to be okay. You see, that well starts to get poisoned. We no longer, I love the way that Dr. Karen Horney says this, is that we become disillusioned with our original solution that our false self was going to be the answer. That disillusioning process becomes very important because with the weakening of these obstructive forces of the false self, the real strength of our true self can start to, and the constructive forces of our true self can start to take hold in our life. So that's what we're moving towards, is being who we are. We're moving towards being authentic. This is a major shift. Way to think about it is we're relocating our emotional center of gravity back into ourselves. We're recovering our lost true self, is the way I like to think about recovery. This is very critical first step in this new journey. We're moving away from a belief that says I'm okay if. Thinking that if things just turn out the way that I want them to, that if people would just do what I want them to do, then I'm going to be okay. I like to think of this as the big lie. And what we start to do is we become disillusioned with this consciousness. We start to realize that what we're suffering from is a growth disorder. This is a very immature consciousness. It's a consciousness of a child. It's egocentric. And that's where we're stuck in our development, at a very, very undifferentiated stage of our development. And what we start moving towards is a belief that says, I am okay even if things don't turn out the way I want them to. My being okay has to do with how I cope with what's happening, not what's happening with me. I will say that again. The big shift here is we're moving away from the idea that I'd be okay if things happen the way I want them to, towards it's not what's happening to me that makes me okay, it's how I deal with it. It's the relationship I'm having to the experience I'm having, not the experience itself. So we learn to claim our experience rather than having our experience claim us. That's a major shift in our consciousness and our way of thinking. We move away from this idea that I need environmental support to be okay, so that we keep looking outside of ourselves for people, places, and circumstances to support me, to make me okay, to give me what I think I need. And we start to move towards the idea that emotional autonomy involves self-support. This does not mean that I become a radically independent and I don't need anyone. Not at all. It is not this radical independence. It says that if I need support, I take the responsibility to turn to my environment to get it. I don't wait for my environment to provide it to me. I learn to ask for what I want, not just hope somebody's going to read my mind or figure it out. Or if I have this idea that if you love me, you'll just give me what I want. You'll know what I want. I won't even have to ask. We move away from this other validated self-esteem. Bill called it top approval. That just if everybody likes me, I'll be okay. Perfect security, right? If you just do what I want you to do, and when I want you to do it, then I'm going to be okay. Other validated self-esteem takes my emotional center of gravity and it puts it outside myself. It locates it in you. And now I put you in charge of my life. If you approve of me, I'm okay. If you don't, then I'm in trouble. I'm knocked off balance. So what happens when we have other validated self-esteem, our sense of self is continually in question and being threatened in every interaction that we're having. Bill called that an impossible way of life. The amount of anxiety that this creates at a subliminal level is unbelievable. The amount of tension we walk around with. What we're moving towards is the self-validated self-esteem, that my self-esteem depends on my reputation with myself, not my reputation with you. Of course, I'm going to be concerned about that. But what's most important is how I think about myself and whether I'm living up to my expectations of who I want to be. Not who I should be, who I want to be. If I have this self-validated self-esteem, I feel worthy of love. I feel worthy of success. I feel worthy of happiness. I also feel very self-confident that I can cope with things in my life, that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. This is where that consciousness that says I'm okay even if comes into play. Because if I have that, then I feel very, very confident in my ability to be able to show up and deal with life. I can walk around and not feel so threatened by what's going to go on. And if I do encounter a situation that is challenging or bewildering or overwhelming, I know I can ask for help. My pride doesn't get in the way. It's okay for me not to know. It's okay for me to be ignorant. It's okay for me to be lost. It's okay for me to be scared, afraid, whatever it is that's going on. I can deal with that and turn to someone that can help me. We move away from expecting people and or life to conform to our expectations. We start to see, whereas before we didn't question these expectations. It was like in our minds, it was okay to expect things, right? Especially if they were reasonable. And of course, all my expectations are reasonable. Yours aren't, but mine are, right? That kind of a thing. So we move away from this. We start to see that my expectations are the source of a lot of my emotional disturbance. They are not a solution to life. They are making life very difficult. Bill calls it putting the cart before the horse. What we move towards is letting go of our expectations. Instead of expecting things, we talk about what we want, what we'd like. We make requests, not demands. If we don't like something, we say, I don't like that. We don't say you shouldn't be behaving that way. We keep it personal. Our behavior now is grounded in being more personal with people and not treating people as objects. Before, when we would should on people, we treated them as an object, that they were somehow supposed to live up to our expectations, especially if they cared about us. We didn't see them as people, we saw them as instrumental to meeting our needs. Bill said it. He says, we had no idea what a true partnership really looked like. A true partnership has room for two people, not room for all these expectations. We move away from taking things personally. All right, we start to see that, my God, I keep making everything about me. I suffer from the it's all about me syndrome, right? Me. It's all about me. Don Miguel Ruiz talks about that the way we're raised in our culture, which is a culture of narcissism, as Christopher Lasch had pointed out to us, but that we're all raised with this sense of personal importance, is that it's supposed to be about me. So when you aren't doing things according to my standards or my expectations or my set of should demands, I take it very personal, like you don't care about me, you're not being a good friend, or whatever other nonsense I do to turn it around. And what we do is we start to realize that we're not seeing other people as they are. We're seeing other people according to a projection that we're having on them. We're projecting what we want them to be, not seeing them as they are. And so now we start to move towards what a real healthy relationship is, and it's based on an I to thou relationship, is where I'm meeting you as a person, not as someone who's going to meet my needs, but as an encounter I have where I can enjoy you, get to know you, share an experience with you, not turning to you to make me feel good about myself, but enjoying our encounter, the experience we're creating. That means that because I'm not taking things personally, I can have a lot of empathy, especially if you're upset and saying something harmful or what used to be harmful to me that I would take personal. If you're mad at me, God, Berger, you're such an idiot. Before I'd say, oh my God, how dare you talk to me that way? You must not respect me. I don't see that as a disrespect anymore. I see it as a person's way of expressing their frustration. But if I make it all about me, I'm going to turn it into you're not respecting me, which is nonsense. It has nothing to do with me. What they're doing, it has to do with them. And if I can let go of that, I can see that this is how they deal with their frustration. They're really upset about something, and maybe I could inquire about that and have some empathy about that rather than instead of having to defend my false image of myself. You got to talk to me a certain way for me to be okay. You talk to me whatever way you want to talk to me. That's what I think true respect is. You being yourself around me, no matter what that is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what I want. Freedom to be able to be like that around you. If I can do that with you, then you're a good friend. We move away from blaming self or others when there's trouble, right? It's like back to this idea when somebody spills the milk, is the first question out of our mind, who spilled the milk? Or is the first question out of our mind, let's get a rag and clean it up. It's just milk. No big deal. It's just milk. When I'm not the best of myself, I make a big deal out of things that aren't big deals because they don't fit with the way things should be, which is a bunch of nonsense. What we move towards is focusing on learning from our mistakes, on what needs to be changed, how to deal with the situation, not whose fault it is, but what can we do to make it better at this particular point in time. And if we need to mutually change to figure that out, then let's talk about what that looks like. But it's not about blaming anyone. When you blame another person for a situation, it doesn't motivate them to change anything. It typically gets a person defensive. You're probably thinking at this point, what an order, I can't go through with it, aren't you? I can read your mind. See, you got to watch out. Be careful. I see it in you, Julia. Oh my God. This is a daunting enterprise. It is, but it's worth it. What we move away from is the curse of perfectionism. That somehow, this one's for you, Patrick Newman. This one is for you. Curse that things have to be a certain way for things to be okay. No, they don't. What needs to happen for things to be okay is that we just do the best we can and then we strive for progress and learning from it. And if it's not up to the standard I want, then I take a look at it and I see what I can do to turn it around. But I don't beat myself up if I haven't hit the bullseye every time. If we suffered from a curse of perfection when we were kids, none of us would be walking. We'd still be crawling because we made a lot of mistakes learning how to walk. How many mistakes did you make? As many as you needed to. Patrick, you hear that? How many mistakes do you need to make when you're writing? As many as you need to. Repeat after me, Patrick. As many as I need to, right? You need to make as many mistakes as you need to. Let go of that. It's got to look a certain way. You will learn from each and every one of them because there is something inside you that moves you towards that wholeness. Even Bill says it in this step. He says, there's nothing wrong with if we want to strive for perfection as long as we never fool ourselves into thinking we can achieve it. What we move away from, objecting to reality or being offended by reality. This isn't supposed to be this way. This wasn't supposed to happen. This is not the way life is supposed to be. My God, I heard that lament a lot when I was a kid. When my father died at 39 from cancer, I heard it from my mother. I heard it from my grandfather. I felt it myself. This isn't what was supposed to happen in my life. I wasn't supposed to lose my father when I was 11 years old. And I objected to reality. I became angry at reality. I was an angry young man, pissed off at the world, pissed off at God. This isn't the way life was supposed to be. I was supposed to have my dad around when I was growing up. I was supposed to, have him in the audience when I got my PhD from the University of California, Davis. I wanted to make him proud of me. That didn't happen. I didn't know how to cope with that. Nobody around me knew how to cope with it. So how could I learn? We learn what we grow up with. And if everybody around me is objecting and getting upset with reality, then of course that's the only option I have. And so there's no wonder why when I was 12 years old and I had my first drink, it worked because it soothed all that anger. I was all okay being Alan now, but it was because of the alcohol. It gave me freedom from all of this nonsense that was going on inside of me. So what do we move towards? Accepting reality as it is and developing an honest and appropriate relationship to reality so we can start to learn how to cope with what is and grow up. Deal with disappointment. It's going to happen. Deal with my heart being broken. It's going to happen. Deal with, when things don't turn out the way I'd like them to. God, I feel like I'm growing up as we're talking. It's an amazing thing. What we move away from is this selfishness or self-centeredness. Bill called it the root of our problem. Truth of it is the root of our whole culture's, selfish and self-centered, as we learned from Don Miguel Ruiz. It's all about me, 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 me. And what we move towards, though, is learning how to act for ourselves without being selfish. It's possible to include yourself as long as you're not selfish, which means that I have to keep my awareness of you, the other person, when I'm interacting and asking for what I want and seeing if you're interested or not. Having what we call a truly consensual relationship. I knew nothing about that until recently. What we move away from is being selfless and losing ourselves and doing things for other people. And then keeping score. Oh my God, I did this for you. What are you going to do for me kind of stuff? It's nonsense. I don't do anything I don't want to do. I don't give myself, the way Dr. Kempler, my mentor, said, you give with an open hand and you only take what's given with an open hand. If you do that, then the relationship's going to stay clean. So we move towards acting for others without losing ourselves. I don't do anything I don't want to do anymore. Never. Rarely. I can't tell you the last time I did something I didn't want to do. If I confront something that I don't want to do, and I talk to, let's say Patrick wants me to do something for him and I don't really want to, I'll try to find out what makes it so important to him, and what he might share might change my mind. But then it becomes an I want to. If I can't convert it into an I want to, I don't do it. I'm just not going to sacrifice myself like that anymore. Done that my whole life and I'm sick and tired of it. Not going to happen anymore. What we move away from is disowning parts of ourselves because they don't fit with the idea of who we should be. The idea of our false self. I realized that that was so damaging to me as a person, to throw away parts of myself because I didn't think they were acceptable. And what we move towards is accepting ourselves as we are.
I'm still stuck on the best possible attitude. That's like the humility, the sort of open, relaxed willingness, patience. And I think I have the persistence down, but the other stuff I come in and out of. And I don't know, I think the steps even help me develop awareness of what the best possible attitude is and when I don't have it. And I honestly got a little teary when you were talking about the spilled milk, because in my family, I was a pretty wild little kid. I spilled a lot of stuff, including milk, and the response from in my family was not the calm, let's fix it. It was from one side sort of rage and how could you do this again? You should know better. And then from the other side, sort of, oh my God, let's clean it up quickly. And I thought that was interesting. I still, because have that response
Yeah.
inside sometimes still that something's wrong, right? Rather than, oh, like some milk fell over, not a problem. What can we do?
Our,
Um,
as Vander Koop says, our bodies keep score.
hmm,
The wisdom voice that moves me towards, long term compromising short term comfort for long term gain. You know what I mean? That's all. That's difficult to do. It's become easier the further I get into recovery, and kind of getting into the kind of action that we talk about here. But like, I get burnt out doing the things that are good for me. It's hard sometimes, a lot of the time actually. Like, I lately I've one of the ongoing stories for me this year has just been me trying to increase my capacity and do more and more, and then just burning out a lot. And or like you underlined, Alan, uh, my perfectionism creeping in, and because I can't do things, because I can't increase my capacity and then do things um, according to whatever my perfectionist voice would like me to do. You know what I mean? I think that I struggle. So not sure if that is speaking to
Hmm?
this week's topic, but that's what came up for me.
Oh, yes, definitely is. When you said you get kind of burnt out with the doing things, did you say the right way? How did you say it?
Trying to do more and more now that I'm getting into a place in recovery where I'm kind of in better alignment with my true values that were so buried under like years of addictive behavior and kind of like bad behavior. And now I'm kind of walking more in alignment with what I feel like my purpose is, and my these passions that I have that like had been buried for so long in my previous life. But I think just kind of like rising to meet that challenge to catch that wave um, is something that I sometimes I'm lacking the courage to do, or lacking the stamina to do, or my my weakness prevails, I think, more than I would like it to.
Let me just start by saying that I think that you nailed it tonight. You hit it out of the park. It's just everything that you had presented on. I was out here saying, yes, that's exactly, just really resonating with a lot of that presentation you did. And the second thing I'm going to say is that, I've been waiting 4 years to be invited to say something on this. So thank you very much for inviting me. It's about time I get the recognition, and you invite me. This is wonderful. Just kidding.
Well, the vote wasn't unanimous, by the way. I just want you to
Well,
know that.
I can accept that, Thom. And I almost expect it from you. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's true. Oh my God.
Adjust your expectations. Exactly. There you go.
There we go. So, it's funny because I think I was really fortunate to have some very good mentors in recovery early on that taught me about emotional sobriety long before I knew it was called emotional sobriety. So when I got hooked up with you, Al, and really started to hear, your from your perspective, emotional sobriety, I just feel really fortunate that I was taught a lot of this stuff early on without even realizing. And it was my sponsor that taught me, that expectations are premeditated resentments, right? That's what he used to always tell me and drill into my head. And I just didn't realize how much expectations would run my life, would really consume me. And until I started to really see it from a different perspective, and gosh, it's really has saved me. And I'm not perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination, but it really has saved me so much grief, in really trying to prevent myself from having certain expectations about a certain outcome or about what a certain person should be doing and not doing. And gosh, it just really simplifies my life when I can when I can absolve myself of these expectations. And then, because when I have them, I just go crazy about their not being met. And it's really takes up a lot of mental space. And the other thing I wanted to mention about, somebody had mentioned something about spilt milk and these types of things. I when I was about 9 years sober, I got diagnosed with cancer, and at the time I was living in Costa Rica, and they had detected this just kind of on a whim, and I got put into emergency surgery just a couple of days later, and went through that whole thing. And I, of course, in my head, I'm gonna die, and life is over, and things like this. And obviously, I'm here, so the doctors did a great job and treating me, but what I walked away with that experience was to not sweat the small stuff. I mean, I literally walked away saying, well, if it's not cancer, then it's all good. I mean, that was my mindset from there on out. It was like, I really didn't want to waste time on the little things and to really sweat the small stuff, because it just distracted you from being in the moment. It would distract me from being in the moment and really enjoying, and trying to take away the positive in those particular moments, or just for example, I mean, it really changed my perspective in a big way. And I had a psychiatrist that used to work for me in Costa Rica, and he really helped me in that situation. He would tell me, he said, Nick, people who go through severe calamities in life, and go through cancer and different things like this, like you're going through, when they walk through it and come out the other side, they resonate at a higher frequency in life than other people who haven't. They see life through a different set of glasses. They have a different perspective, and I'm so grateful for that perspective. And that's what the program has given me, and emotional sobriety is, it's wonderful. So it's wonderful to hear this presentation, and thank you so much for inviting me to chat about it.
Well, what you said, Nick, is such a great example of this step six, isn't it? Is you really were moving towards the best possible attitude you could take in your life. And it is oftentimes a
Hmm.
calamity like that, a crisis in our life that really helps us get to new ground, right? Higher ground. Even though it feels like
It's basically it's experiential therapy in real life kind of
that's
stuff. I
it.
mean,
That's
it's
it.
not we're not just talking concepts. You're having the experiences.
Right.
Nobody was saying to Nick that hey, just think about if you had cancer, or think of you if you had to have emergency surgery, and going like, no, let's just have you really do it, and then tell us uh, what that's like. It's that
Did you
and
feel that, Tom, with your cancer too? Did it help you
oh
stay?
yeah, what I was going to say on top of what Nick said is if you want to spend time with people who have a different perspective, go hang out in chemotherapy rooms. And go hang out
Mm.
waiting every morning to get radiation treatment. It's like the people. I mean, everybody's different, but it's like
Yeah.
you just first thing you notice, and this is I say this with some humor, but it also represents something bigger, is that the people who know how to dress are people who have cancer because they don't give a fuck. You just show up. It took me about 2 weeks to figure out that if I had a pair of sweatpants and house shoes on, then I could go wait in the doctor's office, and there was no judgment. Nobody's judging anybody about anything. And I think that's just the representative of not sweating the small stuff like what you're saying, Nick. It's yeah, it's just the little one liner I've been using more often than any recently is one that just says most things don't matter. And people hear that and they'll go like, well, that sounds kind of negative. They go like, no, because the other side of that is some things do matter, and there's not a lot of them though. It's like to me that's what helps you with the find that best possible attitude. It's about becoming I think all of this is about becoming energy efficient, uh, and understanding that we're wasting a lot of energy with all these expectations. And I want to say one other thing about expectations. A lot of times, what I've learned this from talking with this language with clients is you may not you may when you're upset about something where you're distressed, you may not think of it as an expectation. But this is where I love what Bill says in the letter, which is basically if you're in distress, basically if you look, you will find an unrealistic expectation. He doesn't say check and see if you might have one. He says you do have one, and that's what that is to me. That's what that is about, and it makes all the difference in the world to realize that. And again, it goes back to what Nick was saying: just don't sweat the small stuff. The good punchline on "don't sweat the small stuff" is it's mostly small stuff. It's just not that. But I just want to say, I wanted to say this one thing because I'm working with a couple of clients right now that are helping me learn about this is one and because it really brings me back to one of the things I had to learn in my life or continue to learn, and that is a couple of the expectations we have is that when we're in a relationship with people, we have to understand them completely or really close. We need to really understand them. And for me, they need to understand me. And talk about a relief to find out that neither one of those things have to be true in order for me to be okay. Just getting to the place where I was able to say, Dee Dee doesn't have to change anything for me to love her. And I mean, it's a big statement, but it really works. And I'm watching people in relationship right now that I'm working with in therapy that they're in just tremendous pain because their partner doesn't understand them to the level that they want to be understood. And it's real pain. I watch it. It really is. It gets, I mean, it's so counterintuitive in our culture to let go of that. It's like I feel like I've got a crowbar and I'm kind of trying to pry their fingers loose from it. But I just remember what helped me with is remembering that. Oh my God, and bless everybody's relation that been in a relationship with me, but bless Dee Dee's heart. The idea that I was always saying, you don't understand. You need to understand this and understand me. It's like, so I'm lucky to be alive.
Hmm. We're lucky to have you. And I'll just say that, for expectations, they always show up for me personally in some form. It's all about dismantling them and living in the pause.
Yep.
I've never been able to short circuit the expectation. It's there about almost everything, but it's you know,
Right.
finding
Yep.
a way to shush it when I need to.
Yeah. Or just walk around it, or and they don't shush very good, but you basically can just keep walk. I call it quiet defiance. When I got a voice in my head, it's a real problem. I imagine myself pausing, looking at it, and then going back to talking to you. It's just like, and just basically, it's like it's a silent fuck you. It's like, I know you're talking to me. I know that, Tequila Boy wants me to medicate, or the Should Monster wants to point out to me, some horrible shortcoming I have. And so I'll let him say a couple of words and just go on about it. It's like that's an expectation that'll change your life to let go of, is that you're going to get rid of any of these voices. They're not going away. And it's not bad news. You don't have to get rid of them. What you're going to do is you're going to start listening to the wiser voices. And those people, those it's just like people. Those wiser voices don't scream at you, so you have to listen for them. Because the little inner saboteurs, they barge in. They're unsolicited. They scream at you. They repeat it over and over again, just like assholes in real life. Only these are inner assholes.
Yeah. Well, what you shared tonight about this idea that you have to understand me for me to be okay.
Yeah,
It's such a great point. I mean, both sides of that,
yeah,
sides of that coin. You were thinking is that, what I thought the antidote to that is when I am really wanting you to understand me, it's meaning I'm not understanding myself. If I
always,
really
yeah, always, yeah, yeah.
always, man, it's that I'm not seeing that. So that's great, man. Great
Yeah,
contribution tonight from all of you. Thank you so much, Nick, and thanks for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that it really came from your heart.
yeah. I changed my vote about Nick.
Yeah, he's a good
Okay.
guy. He's a good man. I know he's a good man.